Oh, there we go. There we go.
My Gabba brought me home, Tiago. My Gabba.
You Gabba? Who's the Gabba? Parrots? Gershon?
Gershon, yeah.
Gershon. Yeah. Parrots are starting to proverb Rav. I'm just letting Ilam know.
Oh, he's also a Rav now.
What do you mean? I got
Yes.
feedback. I got feedback today from someone who ate lunch with parrots who says he now goes by Morenu.
And some people will call him Morano.
Aaron, I
yes.
heard that about you today also.
I was waiting for that to pop up.
Somebody said it. No, what am I supposed to do?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Whatever. Okay, let's go. So, hold on 1 second.
Jack, you know what I was thinking about earlier? Remember the days we were waiting to hear Matzah Shabbos? What happened with the Shabbos Shuvah Drasha by Rabbi Reisman?
I thought about that today, actually.
It was simple times, the simpler times we used to have.
Yeah.
He spoke
Especially
today
with Hechsher issues.
Fuchs,
Oh, yeah?
What? What did he say?
but no controversy.
No controversy?
Rabbi Reisman gave the drasha at Beirish Fuchs.
Okay. Okay, fine. All right. Fine. At least we davened by Harris Street Minion, by a minion, not somebody's name.
There is somebody named Harris out there, by the way, stomach.
We know so sein gesund. We know Harris. No, he's a Schwugger. He's our president Schwugger. No.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You're Byron, very good.
Well, he's really your uncle, but okay. I mean, I made a mistake.
I told you they went for the transfusions. I told
Yeah,
you.
that's
Right?
oh, they did. They went. Yeah, good. Good.
Okay, so let's go. So Shleishu Matzah Shnayim Mutarin, yeah? So right, we're on Yudam Beis, last thin line. So you had 3 birds, and you found 2, so it's mutter. Here's my timer. So again, so there's 3 and then you find 2, so it's mutter, because obviously we're saying that one of them just walked away. My time, Mahani inu ninu. These are the birds. V'chan v'nayu was alam, and one decided to take a walk. One went AWOL. One bird went AWOL. So Gemara asks, Lemi masnisin Rebbe evil Rabbanon. So maybe our Mishna is going to be Rebbe, not the Rabbanon. The Tanya niach manu matzah masayim chulenu ma'aser sheni mirabin zebazeh. So we have a case where somebody left money that was meiser, right? And he left it he left it out, and he left 100, and then he found 200. So yes, and he found 200. That's, and then what are we going to say now? Is that new? Is that a new 200 and it's meiser, or is it just an additional 100? Yes, that's, and he found 200. So Rebbe says, so what we say is that the original 100 was there, that's Ma'aser Sheni, and then this other one, somebody else put another 100 there. Chum say, no, it's all chulin, because the assumption is that the old money is gone and this whole thing is new money. That's not the case that we're talking about in our case. This is the second case, is our case. Let's say he put down 200 and he found 100. So what we say, there was 100 put down and 100 was taken away. So the original 100 is, so there's still, of the 200, the original 200, there's still 100 there. But the Chum say, no, it's all chulin, because we assume that somebody took the 200 and put a new 100 there. So if you compare this to our Mishna is talking about a case of 3 birds, and then they found 2. So l'chayra, the Rebbe would, our Mishnah goes with Rebbe, because Rebbe said you assume that was just one of them was taken away. So, and the Chachamim say it's all chulin because it's a whole new thing. So obviously our Mishnah is Rebbe and not the Chachamim. The Gemara answers afilu teim Rabbanon. You even say to Rabbanon, Ho'itman Allah Rav Yochanan Rav Elazar Dami Tavau Shani Goizes Hoy Basuyin Ladadas. There's a difference between birds and money, right? Money doesn't move on its own. Birds do move on their own. So by birds, you can assume that there were 3 birds and now there's only 2. You can assume one went on a walk and left. But by money doesn't pick itself up and walk away. So now that there's new money there, we say that the new money is totally new and it's not leftovers from what was there before. Saying what I ask, why do you need the answer that birds are different because they bounce around and they leave? We learned on this statement that what Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar both said, and they said Chadam b'shnei kisin machlokes. This whole machlokes is if the money were in 2 different bags, right? The Ma'aser Sheni was in one bag, and the chulin was in a dam, and the other money was in another bag. But if you find it in one bag, I mean the 200 was in one bag, divrei hakol chulin, everybody holds that that's new money. Meaning if there was an additional bag and there were 2 separate bags, so we could say, okay, so somebody added a bag. But if they're both, the 200 is in a bag, meaning when the guy left it, it was 100. And he comes back and there's 200. Or the opposite case, there was 200, now there's 100, and they were both in the same bag. So the assumption is that it's total new money. And one said, no, the machlokes is the opposite. The whole machlokes is in one bag. But if it's in 2 bags, then everybody says that it's somebody took one. He put when he left 200, and then he took away 100. So Pishlam the Manda Vashnekis and Machlokes. So it's good according to the Manda, but it says that the Machlokes is 2 different bags. That's why you need the teretz, because goizels are meant to run away, because birds is like 2 different bags, right? You're not going to say that 2 birds are 2 different bags. Is in one bag. 2 birds is like 2 different bags. But according to Mandam, it says the whole machlokes, if it's in one bag, everybody holds that a mana was put there and a mana was taken. Why do you have to answer? We said when it's in 2 different bags, it's not machlokes. So Memela, our Mishnah, according to this Shita, our Mishnah can go according to everybody. That 2 birds, we say that it's that it was just one bird took a walk, right? If you're saying about the money, so for sure you're gonna say about the birds. So Ravashi says, "I'm Ravashi. They're not. We're talking about the birds were tied up to each other, and the wallets were also tied up to each other. Meaning, so it was 2 different wallets, obviously 2 different birds, but they were tied to each other. So goizles, menatri adadi goizles will pull on each other, and therefore they're going to separate. Kissin loy menatri adadi, but bags of money or wallets or whatever it is don't move. So therefore, we're going to assume that if you left 200 and you came back as only 100 and they were tied up, the assumption is that it's a total new thing, and therefore it's chulin. It's not going to be ma'aser sheni, right? But by the birds, we're going to assume that they got out. Rebbe Amarlach, and Rebbe, who disagrees, will say, Kisin Nami, the bags also, Zimnin, Antam and Aleph now, Zimnin, the Misakal Kitrayu, sometimes the knots get decayed. Not decayed, where they get untied. Right? Misakal really means to get decayed. The literal translation, Misakal, is to get decayed. But it means that the knots will get untied. And therefore, somebody you did untie the bags, somebody might come along and just take away one of the bags. So therefore, Rebbe says we would still say that it's that it would be chulin. Okay, so that's that. Fine. If you find it inside the cane, and I'm saying you put it inside the nest and you found it in front of the nest, they're also. the assumption is that it's not the same bird, which sounds like a shtickle of chiddush. No, we're saying the birds jump around. So they come out of the nest and they go in front of the nest. All right, so let's say this is a proof to Reb Chanina. Dam Reb Chanina roiv v'karav halach achar haroiv, right, which we had on Friday. Right, you have a majority is telling you one thing, and the proximity is saying another thing. Meaning, so we said an example that you have a piece of meat that you find in the street, right? So if you go with the majority, let's say the majority was kosher, majority of the stores were kosher, so you assume the meat came from someplace kosher. But what happens if it's right in front of a treifa store? So do we still say the majority, or do we say that the proximity or the closeness takes precedence? So from this, it's mashma that roiv and karav, you go after the roiv, because we're saying
by the birds. What is this?
So if you found the bird in front of the nest, so it's karav. Karav tells you that it's the original bird and it shouldn't be muksa because it's the bird that you set aside from before. Roiv tells you it came from the majority of places in the world, which you were not miyachet, so it should be muksa, right? So Roiv would tell you that you're not allowed to use the bird. Karav would tell you that you can use the bird on Yom Tov.
How does Roiv work? Roiv in the world, Roiv in the neighborhoods, Roiv in the parking lot, Roiv in what?
Roiv works with really the world. Really, it works with the world.
Would it make sense if would it be enough kamina if it was a trained bird, a domesticated bird? You have these birds that are trained, no matter what, they're still always coming back to you. They're not going to be mixed up.
I hear that's a good question. It's a good question.
Why is Roiv defined by the world? The world saying, isn't there certain geographics? The bird doesn't fly across the world. There's no Roiv.
Yeah, so but it's obviously it's not. We're not going to be worried about the birds overseas. But anything that realistically that could come from, right?
Okay.
Especially with birds, if they're birds that fly, right? If they're birds that fly, so how do you know where the bird came from?
Right, but the Roiv card doesn't work that way. The meat doesn't fly, right?
No, but we're talking about here with the birds.
Right. So it's
right.
It's a din of Roiv and Karav the birds?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Roiv will tell you that the majority of the birds in the world, you don't need much of a majority. If you only made one bird muksa, not muksa, you prepared only one bird, and the rest, that means the rest of the birds in the world, you're not allowed to shecht on Yom Tov. You don't need that much to make a majority, right? Even though Karav tells you that you should stay close to it. Meaning it's the bird that stayed close. So we're saying, Roiv Karav, you go after Roiv. So Abaya says, I'm Rabbi B'daf. We're talking about where there's a daf. There's a piece of wood in front of it, and birds love hanging on pieces of wood, right? So therefore we would go with the roiv because many birds hang out on top of these wood boards, right? There's no reason to believe that it came from the nest, which Michael's saying the opposite. So go the opposite too. If it's a trained bird, so then there's more of a reason to believe that it came from the nest, right? The Gemara is being mataritz here that there's here, maybe you really would go with karav, but not in this case, right? Not in this case, because lots of birds hang out on this board that you have in front of the nest. But it sounds like in a standard case, maybe we would say that you do go with karav. So then maybe with Michael's case, you can say the opposite too. Yeah, I hear. Rava says it's a weird case. B'shnei kinin zeh lamala mizaskin. We're talking about two birds' nests or coops, one on top of the other, right? And what's went on? Here, zimin means from the word mezuman. Like when you make a mezuman, you're asking everybody to bench. You're preparing everybody. So here you're preparing the bird for shechita. If you prepared the lower birds and you didn't prepare the upper birds, and you found birds. In the bottom one, you didn't find it. In the upper one, dasirin, that's asr, right? Damninan hanach azlu la'alma, because we say that the bottom one's left. Hanach ishtarbu ve'ishtarbu v'nachas. And we say the upper ones, bounced themselves down and got to the lower coop. Even in a case where you prepared the birds in the upper coop and you did not prepare the ones in the lower, right? And he came and he found it in the elyoina, and you didn't find it in the lower. These are also asur, because these went out into the world, and these, right, were held on and went up. Here the chiddush, we're going so far as to say that these birds made their way up into the top, and they're not the original birds. Right, which sounds, somebody asked it on Friday. We're going so far. I think David, you asked it, right? We're stretching it so far to say that these birds are not the original birds. Seems like it's the chiddush to even say that these are not the original birds, right? Yet the Gemara is still going with that, right? I mean, what is the Gemara just saying here? You prepared the upper ones and you didn't prepare the bottom ones. And you found in the birds in the upper one, and you didn't find it at the bottom. I mean, if I would ask anybody on this daf now, you set birds in the upper coop to shecht, and there were birds in the bottom one too. And then you come and you find nothing in the bottom, right? And you have the birds in the top. Yeah, then would you say that you're allowed to use those birds? I think everybody here would say you can take those birds. Those are your birds. You prepared the top ones, you didn't prepare the bottom ones. But the Gemara is saying, no, they're asur. Because we say that the upper ones flew off and the bottom ones went and replaced the top ones. Right? And Rashi
According
even says,
to Chanina,
yeah.
why would you go with Karev here? You don't have a roiv in this case. You found them in the Elyoinos, that's Kavua. Not Salmatzi, you don't have a roiv. All you have is Karev.
And what are you saying?
Should be mutter.
It should be mutter, right?
You can't get
Rashi
out of it
even-
by saying daf. It doesn't help you because daf is external. Here you found them inside. You have kavua. There's no roiv. You only have karev. How do you get out of Reb Chanina here?
I don't know. And not only that,
Maybe-
Rashi
maybe
says
they
that
look
the birds
different.
don't normally climb up. Birds don't normally climb up. Yet here we're saying that the bird's going to climb up. Right? What are you saying, Rabbi Raif?
Maybe they look different. Maybe you could distinguish that the ones that were on the
Yeah, but
bottom.
You mean you could then what would be the chiddush? Then that would be pashut, that it's a different bird.
Right,
What's
so
the
then we're saying it's asur. Gemara is saying it's asur.
Right, but that's because, if you mean only because, but then what would be the chiddush of the Gemara? If there's no
There wouldn't
chiddush,
be a
then,
shayla. There's no shayla.
Okay.
right? So it has to be a scenario where you don't recognize it. Okay, what are you saying?
What's the source that birds don't usually climb up?
Oh, I have no idea. But I think Rashi says it, no? Rashi in
They would have to climb up. They could fly up. Why are we assuming they're climbing up?
whatever. They don't.
I think
I
it's
don't
the
know,
Gemara Bava Kama about the goat jumping up to the barrel. There the Rishonim say, why does he use a goat? Because it's the only one that jumps up. Even birds don't jump up.
Yeah, so Rashi goes through maybe a scenario where it's really in front and it's not in the front and this and that, but whatever it is, the point is that the Gemara is coming out clearly that unless you are 100% sure that this is the bird that you appointed, I guess, or that you prepared from Erev Yom Tif, if you're not 100% sure, we're not allowing it. Right?
This is just an Isser Muktzah, right?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And you're right. It's a Rabbanon, and Gemara is being so machmir with it. Yeah, 100%.
Not even
Okay,
Mutsamach
right.
Masgufa. It's what is it? It's an animal is
Yeah.
Mutsamach Mas what? Machmas Isser, no?
Yeah. I don't know.
So you don't get to
Okay.
eat?
And so Yaakov, does everybody in the family have to appoint their own pigeon, their own piece of meat, their own steak, their own flanken, or the father, the husband does it for the whole family? Because one little bird, these 1 pound birds are not really cutting it for everybody, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think just one representative is okay. I'm assuming, but he better do a good job and be mizamin as many birds. No. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Gemara weiter. Right. The Gemara says if there's nothing else there, right, then they're mutter. Meaning if they're the only but you find the birds in front of the nest, then we said that you're not allowed to. But if you know, Zev, this is maybe what you were referring to. If you know these are the only birds that you have around, then it's okay. Right? So Hechidami, Gemara asks, what's the case? If you're talking about birds that fly, how could that be? Right? Right? Because you could say, well, I mean, these birds flew away, these are others. So it must not be talking about birds that could fly. Again, the Mishna is saying that if it's birds, that the only birds in that area, and you know that there's no other birds, so then you can eat them. So it can't be talking about birds that fly because they could have flown away and new birds taken their place. Then it must be birds that just bounce around. So you could take a cane beside chamishim amma. So if there's a cane within 50 amas, meaning if there's another nest within 50 amas, approximately 75 feet, then they can jump from one to the other. And therefore, that's not going to be considered the only birds around. And if there's no other nest within 50 amas, pshita dem mutarin. It's pasha that it's mutadam ukva barchama kol hamedada ein medada yasim chamishim ama. I guess he knew scientifically birds don't go further than 50 amas away. Right? Fine. So that's the kasha. So what exactly is the case? The Gemara answers, "Lo'ilam dika kain b'sei chamishim ama." We're talking about a cane that's within 50 ams. We're going to Kaima Bekaren Zavis. We're talking about where the birds are on two different corners, right? You see the Rashi. Rashi has the diagram, right? You have one cane on one side of around the corner from the other. The same is you would think that since it's within 50 amas, it'll bounce from one to the other. If it's able to see its home base, then it'll bounce from one to the other. But if not, then it's not going to go from one to the other. So we have a lot of science of the psychology of fowl over here, right? They'll go 50 amas, but they will not go, not if they lose sight of their nest. If they're going to lose sight of their nest, they're not going.
Do we ever saw? Right? Do we have who was it? Rebbe who spent 17 or 18 months or whatever was analyzing the ants?
Yeah, somebody, I don't remember who.
Was it? Yeah. So my question is, who?
I don't remember.
No, my question is was a source for somebody analyzing the birds' behavioral patterns as well?
Imagine, listen, I don't want to get into a loaded subject over here, right? But
I'm not questioning. I'm just asking. I mean, we have.
I don't remember, but you're 100% right. The bottom line is that we're against secular education, be'etzem, because everything is in the Torah. It's all in the Gemara, right? So now tonight we learned some science. We learned about fowl don't go more than 50 amas. Right.
So Roiv and Karev only apply to within 50 amas of the thing.
Yeah. I mean, even though it's two different
stories. If they're medadin.
What?
In case of medadin.
If they don't fly, yes.
Let me ask you: a bird in the Congos is not ending up in a bird nest in Farakwe, and a bird in Alabama roiving him don't end up in the frockway.
He got stuck on one of the planes. He was in the airport.
Okay, but that's not.
He
But
stowed
that's
away
not-
on the plane.
From
But
Zev, it's like
that's not-
COVID, no? It went from China and it made its way over here.
Right.
But what happens when we say the birds fly south for the winter? So where do they go? They do fly far.
Yeah, but not in one day. This is overnight. This is overnight, this case in the Gemara.
It's not
Have-
roid. There's
have,
no
have a
roid.
stopover. A stopover.
Maybe Michael is the guy who's smuggling macaws from Florida to New York.
Now
Going
you
back
have to. You're
7
being
times a
nevayish me
week.
barabim,
Guy's
revarim.
going 7 times a week. No, the share would be proud of you if you were doing that. It's not a busha. They'll be proud of you.
It's very lucrative business.
Yeah,
if
you can't
start.
out him. You can't out him in public.
Ravari, tell everyone my secret.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least you know it's not cocaine.
Anyways, okay, whatever it is, but that's you have to know the science, the biology, the science behind the birds. Right? Okay, let's see weiter. Sagt die
No,
Mishna,
this isn't chayil, what's it called? Secular education. The
Why not?
behavior of birds. That's what the Torah, the Gemara says. The Mishna says, no? You're supposed to find out things by studying nature, become closer to the Eivishter. It's his Bria. You can study the Bria. That's not secular education.
That was the identification break. That's not what he meant.
it's still
Let's
part
go.
of science. It's still science. No?
Nothing wrong with science. As
No,
long
I
as
was
it
just
comes from
asking
the
There's
who
Torah.
was
nothing
it?
wrong with science. But
I
the
was just
science
curious
could
if
be
there was
learned-
somebody who did it. Do we know about it? I know we know about
Science
the.
could be learned. Science could be learned from the Torah or through the Gemara. You don't need to have a separate science class. I mean, why do we have to trust some scientist who tells us that a bird doesn't go far from its nest if the Gemara tells it to us? I'm saying it's the
Why do
same
we have-
research. It's the
So
same
why do we have
research.
Why do we have to believe a doctor? Just let's look in the Torah.
The Anochanami. Anochanami. Well, yeah,
If a doctor tells you on Shabbos, you Michal Shabbos, you don't have to listen to them because the Torah
that's
tells you.
different. That's different because the Torah tells you that you got to listen to the doctor. The Gemara tells
Why are you
gotta
listening to? What are you listening to the doctor? It's science, no?
because the Torah doesn't weigh in on it.
The Torah doesn't weigh in. I thought the Torah weighs in
Yes,
on
we
everything.
don't. If the Torah tells you to be Michal Shabbos or something, even if modern technology says no, we will go with the Torah, not the doctor. 100%.
Correct, but on refuah, why are we going with the doctor?
We're not. If the Torah tells, we're going to go lechumra with the doctor, but we're not going to go lekula with the doctor.
If the
He's
Torah
trying
tells
to
you,
paskin like the Rambam and Virapa Yirapa.
We're not paskening like the Ramban with the Rapa Yerapa. We're not going.
I'm
with the
saying he
Ramban.
wants to. Zev wants to.
Oh, no, he doesn't. Oh, maybe.
That's what he's trying to do.
The Gemara tells us that if you have a cut, if there's something wrong with the eye, right? You can take medication on Shabbos because the eye can cause sakana. That's the way we paskin.
To the heart,
Right?
no?
Because the eye connects to the heart, it can cause, right? That's the way we paskin. If the doctor says it's not sakana, we don't care. I'm saying we allow somebody to take eye medication because even the doctor says, why are you not taking, it's not a cheilev, you'll take your medication. No, you take that medication. Whatever, that's a different sugi. It's grada Yom Kippur sugi, but that's for, yeah. Okay, let's go weiter. Yeah, Beis Shamai sagt the Mishna. Beis Shamai ain't noitlen a ali lekatzev v'lav basar. You're not allowed to take a what do we call it again? A pestle. On Friday we called it a pestle, meaning it's a cutting board, but it's meant for crushing, not for cutting meat. So you can use it as a cutting board. So Beis Shamai says you can't use it as a cutting board. Beis Hillel says it's mutter. Beis Shamai ain't noising as or lifnei darson. You're not allowed to put the skin in front of people. Meaning you can't take the skins of the animal because you don't want it to get ruined. So you want it to get how do you call it? Not filleted. Whatever the word is, you want to smooth out the skin.
Part of
Yeah.
the tanning process.
Tanning, right? That's the word. Tanning. Thank you. Right? So you can't put it in front of people according to Beis Shamai, that they should trample it. And you can't pick it up. You're not allowed to move it even unless there's actually a kazayas basar on it, because meaning once there's a kazayas basar, then you can move it because of the basar. Right?
Why? Because it's buses? Because it's buses?
Well, buses is le'isr. But we're saying, yeah, that the main part is the meat, not the main part is the meat. So maybe you're moving it because of the meat, and the rest is just happens to be going along with it. Right? Yeah, because the meat makes it not muksa. Fine. And Beis Hillel says it's mutter. So we have two cases here where Beis Shamai is the machmer, Beis Hillel is the mutter, the mekel. That was yesterday's daf. That it's a stira to our Mishna, and we said Machlokes v'sashita, whatever, we can't pass it by without chazering for parrots. Right? The Machlokes v'sashita. Yeah, so Zog the Gemara. Tana v'shavin shim katzav l'basa sh'asal l'taltala. And they both agree, meaning Beis Shamai and Beis Hillel agree, that if you did chop meat on it, it's still usher to take it. Right? Meaning you would think you already chopped meat on it, so now it became a meat chopper. It's now no longer a crusher. It's a meat it's something that you chop meat on it. So we say, no, you still can't do it. That's all by a pestle. But Tavra Garmi, right? But Tavra Garmi, meaning a regular board that they cut meat on, Divrei Yakol Mutter, everybody holds that that's mutter. Why is it mutter? So because the pashtus is because it's a klisha malachti le'isr, and a kli, we know that a utensil that's normally meant for isr is mutter to move on Yom Tif and on Shabbos too if you need it. It's mutter if you need it, and it's mutter if you need the place. So that's what we would say. So the Gemara says pshita ali tanan. The Mishnah says in ali, it's mashma that everything else would be mutter. So why are you saying that a chiddush that it's mutter? So now the same who had in the filu taver gami nami. You might say that even a board from a butcher is also going to be muksav. I think Tony Ali idea chakach. The Beis to tell you the strength. The Beis the filu davar shemalachti le'isur nami shari.
Why is it malachti le'isur? I don't. We're talking about Yom Tov. Why is it malachti le'isur? What?
No, because normally, right?
You're allowed to eat on Yom Tov, right? You're allowed to eat.
What's
Tircha Yisera? What? Nobody here in this, all the 20 guys, nobody knows what this instrument is. How are you learning the Gemara? What is it?
The Rashi says that.
What is
talking
it?
about a regular butcher's board, regular board. We're not talking about.
So why is it malachti le'isur?
It's not. The Ali is malachti le'isur. That's used to grind spices. Aslam water.
The ali is muksa.
That's used to grind spices. That you can't do.
The tabra, the butcher block is takanat.
You can't grind spices on Yom Tov?
Not with utensils. Not with utensils. Not with you have to do it with a shinui because you could do it from Erev Yom Tov and it could be just as good.
It's not just as good.
Right, so that's the thing. Yeah. So you have to.
It's Moreno parrots. You got to cook
Moreno parrots.
The Indians agree with Aaron.
Okay, so if it's taka fresher,
Indians would say that you should grind the herbs Erev Yom Tov, put the meat in the smoker Erev Yom Tov. Chas v'shalom to do it on Yom Tov. It didn't cook long enough.
I don't know. It's. You're asking in the Havamina, why would you think it's us?
Yeah, I don't understand the Havamina. If I'm the only one, then fine.
They make a spice grinder. Like you can grind fresh pepper and fresh. It's like included in the device. The top of it, you just grind it out.
Right.
Can you use that on Yom Tov?
If you have, it's not simple because you have to know whether the fresh spice is that much better than if you did it on Erev Yom Tov. Right? So Pashtus is you should do it with a shinui. But we're going to get to Beis Shamai. We're going to get to that sugya. We'll get to that sugya. But it's not simple because the question is it really fresher? Right? If it's fresher, then l'chara you should be able to do it. But I don't know. I don't know how you judge whether it's
if you can tell whether it's sherry casks or not, then a Zaf Feinschmecker, then maybe.
What about if there's milk in your beer, Peretz?
as far as the meat is concerned, it's a kli shemalach ve'le'isur. In general, it's a kli shemalach ve'le'isur. This pesel.
No, but Rashi's saying, Zev is right. Rashi's saying the havamin of moving this board is that you're going to move it and then you're going to change your mind. And then you're going to end up doing extra tircha on Yom Tif. That's what it is. That's what they were thought. They would be concerned
Why
with.
it should be us according to
We're
Beis
not
Shamai.
concerned with it. What?
That would only be in Beis Shamai. There's no havamina that it would be us according to Beis Hillel.
Well, there
Or
is.
to Beis Shamai.
But it's the telos, the koyach of Beis Hillel. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
right,
but the board would definitely be mutter.
You're correct. Correct.
So you want to know in
Yeah.
Beis Shamai why there's a havamina it should be usher? It's Beis Shamai. I don't know.
Right. Right.
Because you might change your mind and you're going to, it's going to be
Very
taken.
good. So very good. So Beis Shamai probably hold that in general. Turkey Yisrael is going to be usher. Until it don't. Doesn't mean we paskin like that.
Yeah.
So what
let's see, it's
what does that mean, Tircha Yisera? So you're inviting your brother-in-law for lunch on Yom Tif, and you made 20 pounds of flesh, and you had a fight with him in shul. Tell him to go to hell. Now what do you? Now it's Tircha Yisera because you cooked the meat.
Would Beis Shamai hold that? Very possibly, yes.
Okay,
So
I'm
it
just
doesn't mean we
wondering.
paskin like that. We
I'm
don't paskin
asking,
like that.
there's a Rav here who's saying this year. I'm asking him now. He for Tircha Yisera because you had a fight with your brother-in-law at the wrong time.
Baron, what was the fight about? That's more important.
Well, you give me an answer here, I'll tell you what the fight was about.
He didn't want to wear a mask, Aaron. He didn't want to wear a mask.
It was milchus of fleischiks for the Suda.
So we were talking about meat over here.
How do you milk a pigeon?
With Tircha Yisera.
All right, I don't know, but anyway, that's the havamina. The havamina is tircha yisera. As far as the grinding, we'll get to that. But when we do the whole sugi with that. Okay, so let's divide it. So anyway, it's ma'od the same who did nafilu tavra garmi nami. Even this wood board that's not muksa, but you would think it's also osir. So why are you saying just the pestle? Maybe Beis Hillel even allows something that's normally used le'isr. It would be mutter kamash malan that he can. That Beis Hillel. I'm sorry that kamash malan that Beis Shamai would allow the board. Beis Shamai is not answering the board, right? Because it's not muksa at all. Others say Others say that. Even even a board, even a butcher board is fine. Mao the same mimlach, like tavar Allah. Maybe he's gonna change his mind and he's not gonna end up chopping. He's not gonna end up chopping the meat. Kamash malan we're not worried about him changing his mind and therefore it's mutter.
What chadati means new, correct?
What?
It's the brand new board. Even though the normal havamina is what? Even though the normal board would be to chop meat on, this guy's going to change his mind and use something else.
I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe he's going to use it. I don't know what he'll use it for. I don't know. He'll change his mind and use it to hit the guys over the head who talk during davening. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if that's tircha yisera. Whatever it is, kamash malan, therefore it's mutter. So now the Gemara is saying that Beis Shamai is not concerned with changing mind. Beis Shamai and Beis Shamai is not chayshish for changing minds. But Tanya Beis Shamai ein malichin tabach v'saken etzel behema. You're not allowed to bring a shaychet and a knife to an animal on Yom Tif. Right? This is talking about carrying on Yom Tif. So you're not allowed to bring it. Right? Meaning basically you can't carry the knife on Yom Tif. And you can't bring the behema to the shaychet v'saken and to his knife. Right? Why? Because we're afraid that you're going to carry outside. Normally carrying is okay on Yom Tif, right? But we're afraid you're going to change your mind and decide not to shech the animals, and then you carry for no reason. Right? You can bring one to the other. Can you hear me? Because I see guys freezing up. Am I clear?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, clear.
All right, fine. Just making sure. Beis Hillel says you can take one, you can bring one to the other. You're not allowed to bring spices and the maduch, the pestle, etzel meducha to the meducha, to the crusher. And you can't bring the mortar to the spices and to the crusher. So you see that Beis Shamai doesn't allow it, and the reason why he doesn't allow it is because he's afraid you're going to change your mind. It ends up being that you carry for no reason, right? Which, just to make sure the island understands this, I think this is tomorrow's stuff. You're not allowed to carry on Yom Tov for no reason. Many people make the mistake and they think that Yom Tov, you're just allowed to carry. No, you're only allowed to carry for a reason.
Right? So how do you carry a lulav back from shul on the last day?
That's not simple. It's not
What's
simple.
carrying for no reason?
I'll tell you. Let's say you need Tylenol, right? So you're allowed to bring the whole bottle with you, or you only have to bring as many as you're going to need?
What about practical? What about a talus? You're not allowed to bring back a talus if you don't.
That could be for double reasons. It could be for hachana, and it could be also tilta shalai l'tzarech. Yes, 100%.
How about if you're afraid to get lost?
So if you're afraid you get lost, that might be a tzarech of Yom Tov, Moshe. That's very good. That's a good point. Right? If you're afraid to get lost, then that might be considered a tzarech of Yom Tov. But stam to carry outside is not allowed. However, if there's an eruv, then you are allowed to carry even shaloi l'tzarech. We do not, at least in Farakaway, in this neighborhood, we do not check the eruv for Yom Tov to allow carrying shaloi l'tzarech. But theoretically, if you knew you had an eruv up, then you can carry even shaloi l'tzarech. But normally,
wait a minute. There's no. What do you call it?
Chazaka? Yeah. Could be no. But we don't check the eruv for Yom Tov to allow tilta shaloi l'tzarech.
La would you pass that a person with
Zev, I'm not so sure we have a chazaka every Shabbos, even though we check it Friday morning. So let's not go down that road. Right, but certainly for a few days in, I don't think there's a chazaka. But yeah. But anyway, so that the point of Gemara is that it's going to be a tilta shalei l'tzarech. You see, Beis Shamai is chaysh that you might change your mind. Our answer is hachi hashta. No, this is how you have to say it. Bishlam a behema asilam luche. A behema, you might change your mind. The Amar, because you might say, Nishbak, hi behema krusha. Let's leave this animal. This animal is decayed. It's not fatty enough. Let's bring a behema achriti that's fatter than this. Kedera nami. Asilam luche. Kedera also you might come to change your mind. The Amar, because you might say Nishbak hi kedera debayi tavlan. Let's leave this kedera because it needs spices. Let's take another let's bring another pot that doesn't need so many spices. But here by the board, what are you going to say? He's going to change his mind and he's not going to cut up his meat. Given the shachtel, since he already shechted the animal, he's going to need to chop up the meat, right? So there's much less of a chance of him chopping up, changing his mind of chopping up the meat.
In English, cutting up an animal is called breaking it down. Tavra is breaking. The origin is breaking it down. This is the origin of the Gemara.
So now you have Viter saying that we don't need secular education. All right.
Yeah, same thing, same daf.
There you go. Okay, so Beis Shamai ain't nice in this or. So Beis Shamai says you're not allowed to put the skins down in front of people. Tana. So we learned V'shavan shemochan ala basar litzli. But they both agree that you're allowed to salt the meat for roasting. Meaning what you're going to do is you're going to do a shtick. Basically what you want, the reason why you want to take the hide, right, or the skins and put it in front of people is so that they tan it and it doesn't rot over Yom Tov. So Beis Shamai is saying that you're not allowed to do it. But the Gemara is saying now, but what you could do is you can pull a skin. What you do is you salt the meat on top of the skin. When you salt the meat on top of the skin, inevitably some salt is going to fall on top of the skin. and salting is what will preserve the skin, and then it'll be okay. But you can't do, now there's two different ways of salting meat. The salting meat that's going to be broiled, and then the salting meat that's going to be cooked, right? So salting meat for broiling needs a lot less salt than for a pot, for meat that's going to be cooked. So we're saying that you could pull the skin, but you can't pull the major skin. You can only lightly salt it like you're doing for broiling or for roasting, but you can't do heavy like for a pot. At least that's what Gemara is thinking now. So Gemara says, you're allowed to do some salt for roasting, and then that will go on top of the skin. You can only do it for the roasting. You can't salt it like for a pot. So pshita litzli tanan. It says it for tzli. Even if you're going to do it for tzli, like as if he was doing it for gedera, that's awesome. Right? Meaning, of course, you can't do meat. You can't salt meat that's going to be used in a pot. But even if you decide to take meat that you're going to roast and salt it as if you're doing it for a pot, that's also not allowed. Fine. So you're not allowed to salt cheilev on Yom Tif, and you can't turn them over to make them not spoil. Now we know from the other day's daf that cheilev, there's cheilev and then there's shuman, right? So cheilev is also to eat from a behema, but it's mutter to eat from a chaya. Yeah. So, but a behema is not also behana; it's just also ba'achila, right? So it's like you give it to you can use it for animal food, etc. So it's not muksa, but you're not allowed to salt it. Yeah. So ain malchan as the halal, ain mahamkan, you can't turn them over either, because turning them over is you might come to salt it if you're going to do that. You are allowed to spread it out in the wind, right, on top of beams, not beams. It's the opposite of beams. The other things.
Eggs.
A peg.
Pegs, I don't know, a peg or whatever, like a stick, whatever, a peg, fine, right? And the reason for that is that the wind will blow on it, and it'll have air all over it, and it won't decay, right? So Amar Amasna, Allah Rabbi Shua, the Allah is like Rabbi Shua. Igada Amri, Amar Amasna, ain't Allah like Rabbi Shua. Some say he said the Allah is not like Rabbi Shua. So Bishlam Allah Rabbi Shua, it's you need to tell us that because you would think that normally when you have a Machlokes between a minority and a majority, so you go with the Rabbim, Kamash Milan, halacha ki yachid, that we're going with the yachid here. But according to Rabbim, this is not halacha pshita yachid b'Rabbim halacha k'Rabbim. If you have a yachid and a Rabbim, halacha is k'Rabbim, so the halacha is not like Rabbi Shua. So when it says no, the same mistavar tamid Rabbi Shua, then maybe the Rabbi Shua has a good reason. If you're not going to allow him to at least put the cheilev pieces in the air so that it cools off, then we're afraid that it's going to get ruined, and he's not going to shecht his animal. He's not going to have simchas Yom Tov, right? Kamash Malan, that we're teaching us that it's still a problem, and you're not allowed to do the cheilev and we're not worried that you're going to not shecht the animal because you're going to lose those few pieces of cheilev. Okay, so then a Mishna may or lefnei adarsin. So then why is this different than spreading the or in front of darsin? Right? Meaning, we said that you're not. Why did Beis Hillel mata you to spread the skins out in front of people walking? In order to tell you, because we're afraid if you're not going to do it, you're going to lose the whole skin of your animal. You're going to say, you know what? I'm not eating meat on Yom Tov because I'm going to lose the whole skin, and that's a major money. Right? So Beis Hillel says we're going to allow you to do it. So how come here we wouldn't allow it? So Gemara says, Hasam loy mucha milsa. There it's not obvious. Right? When you spread out the skins on the floor, it's not obvious what you're doing, that you're doing a malacha. Because you can actually use the skins to sit on it. But here, by the cheilev, my time of Sharali Rabban is going to think, why did the Rabbanan allow me to do this? Because because they don't want it to be decayed. What's the difference between spreading it out? What's the difference between salting it? The Chachamim are worried that I'm going to lose money, so I'm going to salt it because the Chachamim allow that. You could hear somebody making that mistake. If we're going to allow it just because we're afraid that you're not going to end up roasting your meat, then it's a problem, right? So he's going to say, I might end up salting it too. Fine. So I'm going to read on Shmuel. Here, talk about a haroma here, right? A person is allowed to salt many pieces of meat at the same time. Meaning you just cut up an animal, right? So you're allowed to salt what you need for Yom Tov. What about all the other meat? They're saying you could salt. Once you're salting, you could salt the whole thing, right? And Rashi says, but at one time, because it's one tircha. Once you're spreading out the salt, put out a ton of salt and let it go all over the pieces of meat, because you know that one of the pieces you're going to end up using, which is the same thing with cooking, right? When you're cooking on Yom Tov, you can put a bunch of pieces into the pot. As long as it's one pot, you can't go put up two pots because that's tircha. Now you could add more pieces, even though you know you're not going to end up eating all of them, right? Fine. But Rav Barava says even more. Ma'arim, you could do a harama. Umalach garma. And you can salt piece by piece, meaning you could salt one piece and then say, you know what? I don't like this piece, so I'm going to get a different piece, right? Then you could take the next piece and you say, oh, I don't like that piece. Let me salt another piece. And then you'll end up salting everything, right? Big chiddush from him. That's the way you could do the harama, right? Fine. Yeah. So again, but it's not this is not a, what do you call it? This is not a salting. I think I might have said that a minute ago that it's salting is asur al salting. Salting meat is not asur on Yom Tov. It's just al tircha. Salting hide and skin is asur, not salting meat. Salting meat is part of the regular food preparation. You just can't do it for Yom Tov, right? You can do it for as Yom Tov as many salted pieces as you want, as long as it's legitimate. Okay, Zog the Mishna. Beis Shamai says, I got another case we had yesterday. You're not allowed to remove the tris, right? How do you call it? The
shade.
Shutters.
The shutters, right? The shade, the shutters of they had stands and they used to shutter it up and then they would pull off the shutter and set it as a table to put out their wares on Yom Tov. So Beis Shamai says you're not allowed to take them down even on Yom Tov. Basila says not only are you allowed to take them down, you're even allowed to put them back, right? And the reason why Beis Shamai is allowing it, the reason why Beis Hillel is allowing it is because if you're not going to allow him to lock up his store, he's not going to sell anything to people on Yom Tov. And again, like we mentioned yesterday, we're not talking about where they're actually doing sales. It's with a trust. They trust each other, meaning you're putting out your wares, and people are going to trust it that they're taking it, but you'll know that they'll come back and pay you back later. Yeah, fine. So Zog the Gemara, my trisin. What does it mean by trisin? Amar Ula trisei chanuyos. It's the trisim of chanuyos. Fine. V'amar Ula shloisha dvarim atiru savim mishum tchilasan. There are three things that we allowed to do it in the end because of the tchila. Landau's on. Landau's not on. All right. This is the big Hatzalah. The big Hatzalah issue with the Shabbos. We're driving home on Shabbos with Hatzalah, guys. We'll get to it in a minute. But basically what we're saying here is that there's three scenarios where we're going to allow you, if we're not going to allow you to do something at the end, then you're not going to end up doing it. Meaning, like we just said, if Beis Hillel's not going to allow this guy to open up his store and close it, then he's not going to end up opening a store, and there's going to be a big chisaron in Simchas Yom Tov because nobody's going to have any food. So there's three scenarios where they allowed it.
Maybe they just will prepare on Erev Yom Tov better. They'll be forced to prepare an Erev Yom Tov.
How? What are you going to do? Leave the store open from before Yom Tov?
No, they'll have to buy it Erev Yom Tov.
Yeah, but I think back then they didn't have refrigeration and stuff like that, so it had to be more fresh, I guess. No, but then how is the seller refrigerating it? I don't know.
Maybe he has the ice box. No?
Maybe, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but anyway, so there's three cases: Ve'eluhein or lefnei hadarsin, putting the skin, the previous Mishnah, right, to putting the skin in front of the darts. And if we're not going to allow you to put the skin, then nobody's going to shech the animals. They don't want to lose all that skin. And putting back a bandage in the mikdash. Right? We had this in Erevin, that we know in the Beis Hamikdash, you can't do the avoid if you have a bandage on, because there's a chatzitza between whatever the karbanos that the kohen's holding and the kohen's hand. So we allow the kohen to take off the bandage and put it back on, even though putting it back on is refuah on Shabbos, which is also midrabanan, right? So, but we allow that too. Even somebody who opens up his barrel, or he starts with a new dough, al gava regel for Yom Tov. It goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that you're allowed to finish it. This is talking about, is a very interesting thing. People like Talmidei Chachamim, right? Always ate their food b'tahara, right? And now this Talmid Chacham has a store to sell his wares, to sell his stuff, and now there's so many people coming. The assumption is that somebody who is not tar touched his food. So we allow him to continue selling the open barrel and the dough that was already started as tahara, even though it could even after Yom Tov, because we don't want him to lose. Because if he's going to be afraid that I should open a new barrel of wine, I'm going to lose it. That's because I'm going to be left with a half a barrel that's tameh stuff or potential tameh stuff. Nobody's going to buy from me because I'm known as the tahara guy, right? So we allow him to finish it off as tahara, even after Yom Tov. So that's also being mater the tchilasai, the saifa, because of tchilasai. Because now the Gemara goes through all three cases. Arlefnei adars and tanina, putting the skin in front of the people traveling. That we learned. So Gemara asks, we learned it already. Why are you telling us a list of three things if we already learned it in the Mishna? So Gemara says, no, maybe Basila allows you to put the skins because, like we said, that you can use it to lean on it. And even on Erev Yom Tov, right? Even a skin that was cut up before Yom Tov, you would also allow it on Yom Tov. The Yom Tov in the Erev Yom Tov. That's only if the Beis Hillel is only allowing it because of Simchas Yom Tov, not Simchas Yom Tov. Meaning you could have, if you did it on Erev Yom Tov, then that doesn't apply. That he holds that you're allowed to put back the shades. We would think that the reason is because there's no such thing as building by cheilev, right? It's the only time that building would be if you put the tris back into the house, right, with an actual house. But to do it on something that's portable, like these stands, that would be motor. But you would think then he would even allow a house. Kamash Malan, in the bottom line. He only allows it for the stores. He does not allow it for the houses, right? Because for the stores, it's for Simchas Yom Tov. He's not going to allow you to take a tris and put it back onto the house on Yom Tov because that has nothing to do with Simchas Yom Tov. Fine. Chazaras Rati b'mikdash nami tinina, machzir Rati b'mikdash avaloi b'medina. Mao the same time of my mishum dein shvus b'mikdash, right? You would think that the reason why you're allowed to put the bandage back on, even though it's healing, is because there's no Issa D'Rabbanan in the Beis Hamikdash. So then and the Memela, Afilu Kain the Labar Avodah. Even a Kain who doesn't have the Avodah, he's allowed to take off his bandage, put it back on because he's in the Beis Hamikdash. There's no Issa D'Rabbanan. The reason why he allowed it is because if you're not going to allow the Kain to put the bandage back on, then he's not going to do the Avodah. So the Bar Avodah in somebody who's going to do the Avodah, it's a concern for him. The Labar Avodah, but somebody who's not a Bar Avodah is not. Fine. So Pesach's Chavisa Nami Tanina, the barrel case we also learned. The Pesach's Chavisa, somebody opens his barrel, Maskali Sasel Gava Regel, and he opened up his dough on Yom Tov. Rabbi Yehuda Yigmar v'Chachamim La Yigmar. So it's beferish. So when it answers Ma'al the same but Tumas Amaretz Beregel Ketara Shavi Rabbanon, you would think that an Amaretz on the Yom Tov is considered tahar. The reason why he's allowed to continue selling it as tahar merchandise is because everybody gets a status of tahar on Yom Tov. And even if he didn't start a new barrel, right? Anything that an Amar touches over Yom Tov is not a problem. We're allowing the end because of the beginning. Hischel in only if he started a new barrel. Is that barrel can that barrel be sold as tahara? But if he didn't start, then he cannot sell that new barrel after Yom Tov as tar. How come Ula didn't say this last reason? Because Ula said 3, right? And then 1 was added on. How come Ula didn't say it? I'm sorry. Ula my time How come he didn't say this? He didn't want to get involved in Machlokes. The other ones are also Machlokes. All Beis Shamai Beis Hillel. So one answers Beis Shamai b'makom Beis Hillel ain't a Mishnah, right? We say that Beis Shamai in the makom Beis Hillel is not even a Mishnah, right? So therefore, that's not even considered a Machlokes. Okay, we could stop here. Now the good talk when everyone wants to stay on. Now this is where the Hatzalah comes in. The Hatzalah guys driving home on Shabbos, right? So Ramosha Feinstein has a chiddush that if you're not going to allow that Hatzalah guy to drive home on Shabbos, he's never going to go on the call in the first place, right? The same thing that we're saying here. If we don't allow you to do the skins, or we don't allow you to close up the store, then you're not going to, he's never going to open it in the first place, right? So Ramosha says that Hatzalah guys be laying you and say, 1 second, I got to drive to the school and then walk home for 45 minutes. I ain't going. So that's what Ramosha was worried about.
Isn't it the Gemara?
It's the Gemara in Eruvin.
Well, yeah, with the midwives, no?
Right, exactly, with the midwives.
So it's
right. So the extra question is, so what's Ramosha's big chiddush, right? So why are you Ramosha Feinstein? Exactly.
Same thing
right?
with Adam. They make a big deal for Adam coming to give the chaydish also. They make
right.
a big
So
suit for him and everything.
Correct. So it's what I mean. So the Farish Gemara, what are you Ramosha Feinstein for? The answer is you need Ramosha Feinstein because we're only mattering the Rabbanons. Nobody be matter deraisa of tchilasa. Nobody's Ramosha's chiddush, and I don't remember now. I didn't look it up. I meant to, of course, I forgot that Ramosha's chiddush that even a deraisa of driving a car. So on the Rabban and the Yom Tov it's a derabanan, but on Shabbos Ramosha's chiddush that even in Issa deraisa we would be matter for pikuach nefesh. Well, it's not pikuach nefesh, whatever it is, because it's already pikuach nefesh is over. Ramosha says we're even going to be matter deraisa, which many poskim took issue with Ramosha's heter for them. Again, Ramosha's a big chiddush. He's allowing Hatzalah guy to drive home because he may not go on the call. If you need, let's say there's only a few Hatzalah guys and they need to come back from the hospital because we need more guys local, that's pashut. Everybody holds this mutter. We need them to come back. We're talking about where there's, Kanai Nahara, there's 100-something Hatzalah guys in the neighborhood. A guy that drives to South Nassau we don't need him back here, right? At least we hope we don't need him back here, right? But still, we're going to allow it because he may not drive out. So that's where Ramosha's chiddush comes in. But okay, that's enough. Yeah.
My son, we're not going to say the name, but somebody that Zev knows well in Flatbush, by COVID, one month he went to 400 calls. A volunteer at Solar guy, 400 calls. So if you didn't matter him, what went 400 calls Hashem Yerachim.
Wow. When? During Corona?
Yeah.
How do you know that this guy coming back, maybe he'll be the guy closest to the next Hatzalah?
That's true, but Lamaisa, there's enough guys around. That's
already. Zev, you can use that to drive around Stamazai on Shabbos. Maybe I should drive around in my car.
Stop it.
What stop? Seriously. Maybe I should drive my car around. Like they place ambulances in certain locations and they just park there strategically. Maybe Hatzalah should do the same thing on that svara. Maybe I should drive to Shul.
All right. There's no reason for it.
Why not? I'm going to be in my car instead of me running to my car. I'm going to be in my car. It's going to save 30 seconds.
One second. They leave cars.
You couldn't drive back because you had kiddush already. You couldn't drive back.
They leave cars by Darche. I know that they park cars there by Darche in case they need one on Shabbos.
I understand, but the svara of saying on my way back I may have a call, therefore I should be allowed to. So on that svara I should also drive everywhere.
Yes.
Isn't Reb David Cohen Matis sometimes people all right, whatever, we don't have to get into this.
So what?
No, he's
talking about
Matis.
nurses?
His nurses matter shoimrim sometimes I've heard in cases.
Yeah, but he's not matter. He's matter deraisas, or he's matter them
Shoimrim
to
will
do
walk
the
some. He's matter some shoimrim going around, and in times it's a sakana.
Okay, so then he holds it's a sakana. He's saying it's a sakana.
For the Rockaway Shomrim, he and Rav David Cohen and Rabbi Force wrote our Shabbos protocols.
Right, so I guess it would depend on the time, whether if it's a sakana, then they would allow it, right?
No, the
They hold
shaila
even if is it's a
the big-
chashash
no.
sakana.
The big shaila is if you could hire goyim to take away the deraisa, so why don't you hire the goyim to do that, right? That's the shaila.
Because they're not as smart as we are.
No, I'm talking about the goyim as far as driving. I mean, in certain neighborhoods, right? If a Jew drives to South, if Gottman drives to South Nassau, there's a guy that picks him up and brings him back to Farakah. So that takes away the deraisa, and it's only the rabbanon now. But Malcolm you might need, so then Rav Tzvi Yaakov said you could do it. That's the big shiloh, right?
Yeah.
That's what Rav Tzvi Yaakov's bringing up. Meaning, in other neighborhoods, they have a goyish driver that's paid through Shabbos, a couple of drivers to pick up the guys wherever they did the Hatzalah call. You understand?
Now the question is who's paying for it?
The Hatzalah people, the donation that you give, another $200,000 will go towards drivers. So that's not the issue. That's not the money, because they get the money. You understand? The problem is,
since when does money have anything to do with Shabbos? When do you say, oh, it's expensive, I'm going to be Mechal Shabbos?
It's a good question. This is why I only drink my good bourbon while I'm driving home from a call.
I mean, the shaila is why isn't certain communities, why they Saimich on this heter of Moshe, and they should drive back. You know, they should get going to drive back and take away the deraisa. The Rabbanon, Rav Tzvi Yaakov was saying, is not an issue.
Right, the Rabbanon.
Right?
That's why Lakewood.
Lakewood. That's what they do in Lakewood.
That's what they do in Lakewood. They do that, I think, in Muncie. I'm not sure, but I think they mean that's certain neighborhoods. That's what they're doing. That's the show. That's the show.
Right. So Rav Moshe was materit, and because many of the poskim disagreed, so that's why other communities don't rely on Rav Moshe. That's all.
They do this extra thing in order that they shouldn't. They should, if it's
not necessarily extra.
So
they
not relying on Rav Moshe. That's
right.
They're not.
What you're saying is good, Zev. Zev, what you're saying makes a lot of sense and very good. But these poskim are not relying. They're saying Rav Moshe is wrong. So
no,
yes,
they're not being. No,
they're
they're not being soimich on the heter of Rav Moshe.
So that when you're not soimich on somebody's psak means you're saying he's wrong.
No, you're not saying he's wrong. You're saying
then
that.
What? What are you saying?
When you have koich the hetera adif, and a person has the right to say, "I want to be more machmir in certain instances."
So you're saying that Isaac is wrong?
No, you're not saying he's wrong. You're saying that he's.
I don't eat Chol Yisrael. What does that mean? I'm makbid on Chol Yisrael.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Does that mean that you're not
wrong?
Could be.
Moshe doesn't say you have to eat chalav stam.
He says you could.
Doesn't say you have to drive back. If you want to drive back, you can drive back. If you have a guy to take you, so now you have a guy taking.
He made policy for so they don't have to worry about the shaila that you're all bringing up about driving on Shabbos. It's not in their doesn't have to be in their radar. That's what Moshe said. So if you don't want to listen to him, you're saying
maybe he said if you don't want to drive back yourself because you get nauseous, you could drive back yourself. Doesn't mean you have to.
So
that's what he's saying. Doesn't mean you have to drive back.
But you're allowed.
If you want to, it's not considered.
He says you could. It's good. So a person who drives back is not Mechal Shabbos because Rav Moshe said it's mutter. But if he wants to be machmer and get a guy to drive him, he should be able to do that.
Excuse me. Hello, you're changing now. Now you're saying one lonely Hatzalah guy in Omaha You're talking about Beshita, the Lakewood Hatzalah does not use Ramosha's heter. That's what you said. So that
Correct.
means they're saying Ramosha is wrong. That's what I'm saying. If they want to say Ramosha is wrong, because they hate their big price skim, you know, they don't wear lace top shekels either in Lakewood. I don't know if they're right or wrong, but they're saying Ramosha is wrong. It's a sheet that are saying he's wrong. It's not one Hatzalah guy decided to hire a Puerto Rican to drive home his ambulance. It's the sheet of the whole Lakewood Hatzalah. None of the chevra drives home from the hospitals. So that means they're saying Rav Moshe is wrong. Barabim, they're saying the person who was the last Gadol Hadar Paisik in America, they're saying he is wrong. That's all.
Yakov's so quiet.
I don't know. I'm just answering Shilas.
It's riveting drama. We all have to be quiet.
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know why. We have to really ask Lakewood why they're doing it. Are they saying like we prefer not to be? Meaning, what happens if the goyim are not around? Would Lakewood let them drive back themselves,
or if it's a very big call, and let's say there's 15 members that respond, that means they have to all wait for that many goyim. That's a lot of tirka.
Right. So if the Lakewood poskim say that they have to walk home, then we know that they're mamish going against Ramosha. If they would say no, they could drive, then they're not going like Ramosha. They're just being machmir. That's what I would think. I don't know if they've ever had this situation. I don't know.
So thank you once again. You prove you're smarter than me, Rav Yaakov. If we didn't really need another proof, but that's another proof. Baruch Hashem.
I don't know why that's doing smarter than you, but that's would be the eitzah to find out. That's all. I don't know, Tucker. But yeah, whatever. It's a big, but Lamaisa, it's a big. Ramoshes is a big chiddush. It's a big chiddush.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, maybe that's the reason he learned for 85 years. You know,
that could be. Yeah, that
Byron, it's very possible that even in Lakewood, if they had COVID going on and the taka was 400 calls going on in a month, and they didn't have time to wait for the goyim because they only have a couple of them,
so
that in Lakewood they may have said, take the car back.
That's what Yaakov is saying. Yeah. So you have to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rabbi Stein, the call Erev Shabbos, we all left beforehand. We told them there was a specific time, and then we all left.
I hear you.
But Peretz, why should I have all the facts before I say something?
But you should know, Rav Aaron, the way it works in Lakewood is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
They had the goyim came, they had the radios with the Hatzalah, and they got their address, and they're taking them, and it is. But I think they drive a Yid drives the ambulance back.
Yeah,
I think
that's probably an insurance issue.
I don't remember who
well, you
drives
can't be
back.
Well, Jesse, that would also be a way of figuring out the Ramosha, because for an insurance issue, we ain't allowing a Yid to drive for an insurance issue. If you hold like Ramosha, okay. But
if you allow a guy to drive an ambulance and he gets into an accident, now Hatzalah owes $50 million and it goes out of business in Lakewood.
Once again, Jesse, once again, money doesn't override Shabbos.
But now Hatzalah is allowed to answer a call for a guy on Shabbos because they'll get sued if they don't. So I guess it does affect it a little bit.
Maybe you put them on the insurance.
Because Hatzalah got into big problems for not taking a guy, but taking a Yid. So now the policy is if it's a guy, they have to do it.
But in the middle of the shir, you said something. You said you're not sure if there's a chazaka from Friday morning. What is the? Can I ask?
How many controversies you want to talk about in one night over here?
By the way, Jesse, according to Rabbi Cohen,
Rav Tzviakov, it's Matzah Shabbos.
I don't
go to the movies. I don't do it, so I gotta,
Yeah, but
wants to get them all in.
Have somebody deliver pizza to all of us. Then you can go talk about the Erev.
All you gotta do is just stick a little note on it saying, if you want to help out the yeshiva, please send a check.
Yeah, I'm in Lakewood now, so that's why I'm just.
We can tell you're upside down. The internet there is the hepa.
Anyway,
Jesse's point, by the way, you could say the Ava thing. Hatzal would be closed down, money or not money. I know that money's no option, but if Hatzal loses their license to do what they're doing because they ignore
According to
Goyim,
Revival Cohen, if you know that there's a guy and you're 100% certain that it's a guy, it is usher to be Michal Shabbos.
All I know is that Hatzalah got sued and they changed their policy, but you'd have to ask the Hatzalah guy for the particulars. I just heard things probably 16th hand.
Anyway, so getting back to the Erev, because I gotta sign off because I told someone I'm gonna call him. Need Damon's nets. So the Erev, Zev, the problem, he's right side up. Okay. Yeah. But you had a nice shirt on, I could tell you. But
okay.
bottom line is every Friday, Kemat, the Erev is down.
Every Friday.
Every Friday, Kemat.
But don't you put it back up?
We do, but the cheilev, right? But the cheilev is when does it fall back down? It gets put back up Friday morning, which is a different issue. Which why we're doing it so early, I don't know. So you got a whole Friday, you got a whole Shabbos. That's almost 30% of the week. Right? So we don't know. Or it could,
did anybody ever check it Sunday? Did anybody ever check it Sunday one?
We have never checked it 3 weeks in a row Sunday. And the reason why we can't is because if we do check it Sunday and it's down, then the Erev is down for the next Shabbos according to all Shitas.
Why?
Because there's no Chazakah. So that's a shtickle problem with. Is that a
doctor? Reb, you can continue this conversation and you're going to stop the carry. I'm just letting you know. Reb Yaakov does not carry on Shabbos.
Neither do I. Don't worry.
If you do 3 Sundays in a row, let's say in the summer when it's beautiful and you get it and you get clear, so how long will that last you?
You're right. It's a good Aaron. That's a good point. That's the only thing that really ruins our chazak is the weather. I mean,
saying that if you
I'm sorry, not the
3
weather.
Sundays
Sorry, Fakir. People is what checks. Weather doesn't really affect our Erev unless you see branches on the ground.
So when you have the chazak of the Trumas Hadashin, if you checked it and it was good 3 Sundays in a row?
I don't know.
Okay, make the call. I'm sorry for holding you. I'm sorry. This. Could you give another share on this year?
What, on the Erev?
Yeah, we were supposed to
Maybe,
do.
We were supposed
to during Erev, and we were supposed to do a class trip.
Yeah, it becomes what do you call it? It always becomes controversy anytime you discuss.
No. We won't tape anything. No taping.
Yeah. All right, maybe.
Or Zev, we'll give the share when you're not available, and you're going to ask us to record it.
Parrots.
All right. Anyways, okay. Good talk, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Good talk.
Good talk.